How about no?
Never. I'm not doing it.
It's not like it tells me when I go live.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the First Layer. My name is Richard Cleveland.
Live.
And you know that guy over there. That guy.
Come on, you got to get the directions right.
Yeah,
and then,
I got it right.
Wait,
that guy right there.
Huh?
It's Brian Baker. Yay!
Hey, happy Saturday.
It is Saturday.
Is that what it is anymore? Holy macaroni. I got to wait a few more minutes before I curse on this show.
Have you learned from your time at home how crucial it is to have human contact?
Yeah, too much. I'm tempted to hide in my storage locker once in a while.
Gotcha. Well, we've got a few people to say hello to tonight, and let's start at the top of the list. We'll work our way down. So the early birds that were in the house tonight, we'll start with Rex Waldy, Gary T, Miser's Reef, I hope I got that right, 3D Printing and Painting, there's our good friend Jerry Knapp, Snapshot FPV, Ben Brady, Trevor Rickard, Larry Hall, Jim Haribnek, DePark 88, Joseph Jolly, Pierre, Terry Murphy, David Sell, Miles Clayton, Mark Fuentes, Richard Taylor, Gary T, Sean Gould, and I think I got everybody so far.
Nice.
I think I got them all. So
I was trying to find a nice image to describe how I feel about this week, and I think this one perfectly nails it.
That's. I'm kind of sitting there myself. I might be a little. Is my audio a little hot?
Oh, you're sounding okay on my side.
Okay. Well, let's. We got Penguin Life, Mark Brown, 14 Scarecrow. Wow, we got everybody in the house tonight. So. This is our regular crowd. Let's play RC. John Kitchen. Hello, everybody. All right. So tonight we've got a few things that we're doing a little differently. Brian and I have kind of been playing with this off and on this week a little bit.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. We're now able, and you can see I'm much better lit today than I normally am.
It's definitely much more even. We've actually had time to work on all this.
Yeah, actually.
I've got printers running. It's weird.
Me too. Watch this. Let's just cut to this one here. You guys might remember this from earlier today. I was doing my 16 stack that you guys were following, and it failed spectacularly on the second layer. So, yes. So I've gone back to doing 3 at a time. I have 3 of them. Right here in my hot little hand. And there they are. There's the 3 that I have.
Ooh, shiny.
I'm making them out of what is supposed to be light green PLA from Spool 3D. These are the version 2.2 from shop3d.ca. We're going to talk a little bit about their initiative and how they're trying to get these things out to the people that matter. Pierre Martin, he says Australia to say good morning. Well, good morning. Have you been drinking,
Happy
Richard?
Winter.
No, Jim, I have not been drinking. I wish I had been, but no, I have not been drinking. So
I wish I'd been too. I got a bottle of 99% proof downstairs that I said I'd use for cleaning supplies, and I haven't needed it yet, so it's getting quite tempting.
I have no liquor in my house whatsoever.
Oh no, everybody, super chat now. Problem solved.
Problem solved. Hey, there's Mike Brown. Welcome, Mike. We're going to show you guys something really cool here this evening. I'm just going to pull up my first queued video, or first queued little thing here. And this is from Miser's Reef. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Noob here, first timer on this live stream. Well, welcome to the live stream. We're glad to have you. So we've got.
Let's talk a bit about this. What is this live stream, right? Because for all the newbies out there.
Yes. What is this live stream? Well, this live stream is called Ask for Help. It's what we do every Saturday night. And on Saturday nights, this is where you get to submit your questions to our email at questions@thefirstlayer.com. And we take those all the way up to about Friday evening. Sometimes we take them into Saturday, unless there's too many, and then of course we end it at Friday evening. And then they get precedence first, okay? So what I want to say to you guys now is, first and foremost, Super Chat is turned on. If you would like to get our attention with a question, that's surely a way to do it. And if you are on our Super Chat tonight, this is what you're going to hear.
Super Chat.
So, something we've been playing with. I thought I'd
It's
try
only
it
linked
out.
to that. We're not going to have the robotic smiley face, smiley face, smiley face,
That's
smiley
right.
face, smiley face, frowny face, smiley face.
That's right. Yeah, we're not
the
going to have a lot
nightmare
of that. We have Mr. Tremblay. I cannot say your first name. Good evening from Quebec City. Good evening. Pierre says salut.
Salut.
I'm not very good with French, so I can swear really well in French, but that's about it.
Yes. There's a couple of certain license plates I've seen around town of my favorite Quebec swear, and if you know it, très bien.
There you go. All right, let's get into our first question for tonight, and then we'll start taking some questions from the chat. First and foremost, we have one from Tom. He says, "Hello, Richard. I'm looking for a filler that I can use to finish a print. I've made and have no clue what I should use or what might I use to get a super smooth finish for painting." Well, Tom, you're asking the wrong guy. No, you're asking the right guy, actually.
Welcome to the final layer.
Yeah, welcome to the final layer. That should be a whole new show.
Yes.
Right now, what I use is filler putty. It comes in a tube. It's by 3M. It's called spot putty in most places. Now that gets very smelly. So what you can use as a filler is actually wood putty. You can get it in a little tub, and you can use wood putty to fill in the plastic, because the wood putty does have a plastic sort of binder in it, and it will go very well onto your 3D print, and then you can sand it down smooth, and that should take care of all of your problems. Ben's asking, how many questions do you get in emails, Richard? Depending on the week, Ben, I can get anywhere from 3 to 15 in a week. Some of them I answer that don't go on the show because they just aren't, related to the show. And for some reason, people are still sending email to my own personal email, which is fine. I don't mind that. But just remember that if they're not in questions at thefirstlayer.com, they usually don't go into the document for tonight's episode. Okay. Trevor, I have a quick question. Let's see here. Let's put Trevor's up on the screen here. He says, I have a quick question for y'all. I had TMC 2130s on SKR board. I was wondering about the modes like Stealth Chop versus Spread Cycle. I read something up saying stealth jobs can be too weak. I'm going to turn this one over to Brian because he knows more about the Stealth Chop than I do.
I'm glad you turned it over, yeah, because I actually watched a video 2 days ago. I was curious about it myself, and the simple answer is that yes, Stealth Chop, when you enable that, you will lose out a maximum torque ratio. And I think it was showing somewhere in the area of like 200 millimeters per second plus. So for the average user, Stealth Chop is completely fine to use on any of your printers. My understanding is it performs better on 24-volt systems than it does on 12s. But in my testing this week, I actually converted my printer from 12 to 24 volt. I didn't find that much of a difference in torque. Now, where Stealth Chop does become a problem is when you're using linear advance, and it's because of the number of commands and the rapid directional changes. There's a boatload of GitHub issues opened on this, particularly with the SKR boards, even one that I commented on about 30 minutes before the show started. The simple answer is if you're going to use linear advance, turn off the stealth chop on your extruder, and you still won't hear it, to be honest. The extruder has such a low torque requirement, and it does such small movements that you won't hear it buzzing like you would your X, Y, and Z. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. The simple answer is enable stealth chop, try it, and only start disabling it if you're having issues. But for me, I turned it off mid-print. It just made it noisier.
Yeah, and that can happen. I think, Brian, you've hit the nail on the head there, and because you deal with this more than I do, I think that was the perfect answer. I think they're going back and forth here. They're using an SKRV 1.3 or version 1.3, and he's using TMC 2130s with the new Marlin version. Yeah.
I'm gonna at risk of you guys all leaving and watching this other video, I'm gonna link it in the chat. I watched this week. It's very technical, in depth of the Trinamics at different voltage levels, and it shows you basically what the curves are. Now, simply put, 12 volts, because it's a lower power rating, there may be other issues in there. I'm also sorting out some issues with the Trinamics right now on GitHub. I'm hoping to get some confirmation from a couple other users and maybe get it rolled as an override into the next version of Marlin. But for the time being, if you are having issues, especially with skipping layers or inconsistencies with the BL Touch with the E3 boards, I want to hear from you guys. Either email us at questions@thefirstlayer.com or come join our Facebook group, and we'll work through it together, because I may have a potential fix.
So Phil
Morris, thank you.
Thank you for the super chat. Yes, Richard needs a beverage fund. Thanks for the continued quarantine content. You are very welcome. High five, fist bump, little shaky dance.
We haven't figured out our own channel kind of niche thing. So
I did put out today, or this week, I actually put out to some of our content people that, or our designers, that I am looking desperately for a mascot model for the first layer. And some people have risen to the challenge, and we're going to see something very cool very soon, I think. So, thumbs up. Now, let's talk a little bit about these guys. There's been a lot going on this week in relationship to them. I did touch on my spectacular 16 stack failure today. But I do have three that are printed very nicely. Brian, you've pulled up something today that we were talking about before the show started. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll have to pull it up here again, but I saw a link on 3D Printing Canada that was talking about in Canada, because our government has actually put out a website on it, and the TLDR right now is, if you don't have a medical license approved to manufacture, or you're not working with a company that does carry that license to authenticate, then you're not allowed to distribute or print supplies for any kind of commercial or medical purpose. It's a very I'll see if I can pull up the actual document here. Have to bear with me for a minute because it popped up out of nowhere. Where is it? Canada.ca. That's all Revenue Canada stuff. There's so many different changing things, and even the page says, it's changing minute by minute.
Gotcha.
3D printing, yes. I'm sorry, I wish I was more prepared for this, but... Okay, let me see if I can share my screen here.
I'll give you the floor.
All right, I've got three different desktops right now here, so you'll have to bear with me. Okay, on that one, and transition, there we go. Okay, so this page just popped up today about 3D printing and other manufacturing and personal protective equipment in response to COVID-19. The objective is supposed to tell you about everything, but they talk about the different standards that you have to meet. So ANSI ICA Z87, which, if you know anything about safety goggles, these are pretty standard CSA numbers you'll find on different glasses, such as ones that you would get at the firing range, gun ones, basically. And then there's a bunch of different things for face masks with ISA A certain, and they got stuff in here. 3D printed face masks may provide a physical barrier, but are unlikely to provide the same fluid barrier and air filtration as licensed surgical masks or N95 respirators. So when they're talking about all the masks that everyone's coming out with models, they've done their research here about quoting all the different ISO and ASTM numbers. The simple answer is that 3D printing, at least at the level that we do it at, is still a hobby, and there are still engineering requirements. So what they're getting down to is these two items here for authorization. Um, Allow for the distribution and sale of 3D printed Class 1 devices. So either the manufacturer must hold an authorization under the interim order respecting the importance and sales of medical devices for use in relation to COVID-19, or the manufacturer must hold a valid medical establishment license. So what you need to look at right now is all the groups that are asking for medical supplies, and I've noticed this a lot more in the United States versus Canada, is that the supplies are going to private medical clinics who might be allowed to use these products. But if you're a government organization, there is a much more strict requirement to distribute medical supplies. And of course, it's the inherence of the risk. Right now, as this is changing day by day, it looks like the current message is that unless you're medically certified or you're working through a medically certified facility, they're not supposed to accept these medical supplies. Now, as I said, that's changing day to day, and in countries such as Italy, where there is truly a state of emergency, Canada has not actually called a national state of emergency yet, only the provinces had. So once it goes to a federal state of emergency, then they might loosen these restrictions based off pure necessity. But right now, they're saying the only exemptions to requiring the MDEL is if you are a retailer, a healthcare class facility, a Class 1 manufacturer that imports or distributes solely through an MDL holder, or an interim order IO authorization holder. Simply put, for hobbyists, I think there's a little bit ways to go. So if you want to start printing and having them on hand, that's great. However, I can't guarantee anybody can officially receive these items at this stage of the game. So just a fair warning. Your mileage may vary, but this has been my research experience so far.
And there you go. There you have it. I'm going to put a link to something that Phil Morris, or not Phil Morris, I'm sorry. Who was that? Let me go back here.
I will post this Canada.ca link to the chat, by the way.
Yeah, Morgan Pierce. This is something that's going on in Canada right now. So if you guys want to take advantage of it, check this out. This is the one that I am currently working on. And this is what I'm doing these for. So
okay, so maybe we can talk a bit about the shop3d.ca one. Okay. I only heard about this the other day, but you seem to be a lot more familiar with their project at this stage.
Yeah, right now what they're doing is they're putting out the call to the makers in our community. It's shop3d.ca. I'm not familiar with this company as a whole, but Morgan Pierce, who's one of our patrons, and he's also one of our regulars here on the show. He actually got me involved in this, so I decided this is what I'll end up doing. So I'm starting to print these. They're asking how many you can print, and all you simply do is just sign up. It's free to sign up. If you're a medical facility or you have any medical, building that supplies stuff, you can certainly order some of these. So there you go. And they're free to order. They'll even pay for the shipping. For us guys that are making these, all they want you to do is just make the bands and then send the bands to them. They'll send you a shipping label, so none of this is out of your pocket except for the filament. And if you're buying filament from them to do these, once they have gotten back all the parts for the filaments that you purchased, you'll be reimbursed for all the filament that you purchased to do these headbands.
Well, they've had to change that basically as of earlier today when I was looking at it. They were providing filament kits,
Yes,
and
filament
then
kits. Yeah.
they've run out of those, and they don't have the money to simply put to donate more filaments. So what they're saying at this stage is, if you're willing to volunteer your filament, they will pay for the shipping and everything to get it over to their facility, but they are not providing complimentary filament at this stage.
No, they were.
Though
Yeah,
if
you
you do
have to
want it,
purchase it. Yeah,
yeah,
you have to purchase it.
yeah,
But they
but they did
will
have
reimburse you at
kits.
the end. Okay, so now that that's all over with, we've done our due diligence on that. Let's get to this question here. We're going to send this one in. This is the first layer question. What do you think of Wagster's firmware for the Wanhao D9 300 Mark II? Have you used it? I have not. I can't comment on it. I would say just stick with what is on the printer right now. The more you tend to mess with things, the more, I hate to say it, but the more that you mess with things, the more complicated you make things. And then the easier it is for things to break down. And if you're not very familiar with how the firmware works, you could get yourself into some real trouble. So I would just stick with what you've got. If it's causing you any issues, of course, I know where you bought it because I sold it to you. Come on down to Spool 3D. I'll be back in the shop next week. I don't know when the doors are going to be open again, so we can talk on the phone. You can always call in or send me a direct email, and we can sort that out. I want to cover Pierre Blanchard's questions here. He says, "Hi, Mandalorian. What paste to use to smooth the helmet? I printed the Mando upside down. Top helmet is ringy," and I know exactly what you're saying about that. You can use Bondo filler, you can use glazing spot putty, or you can use wood filler. Any one of those will work fine. You can also use XTC 3D, which is a resin. However, that is going to obscure your detail. So I would say use one of the putties and you should be fine. Second, he says, upgraded Marlin to 2.0.5.2. X-stepper works fine going left and right, but X-homing will not move to X-min. I'm using the TMC 2130 sensorless. What do you got to say about that one, Brian?
Okay, so if the issue is in fact that it's not moving, then your issue is the sensorless homing threshold, which I think is default 8. I'm sorry, I haven't used this feature in a long time. Your sensitivity, it's too sensitive, and so it's detecting the home crash point right away. Option B is that your sensorless homing input to your end stop basically is not registering. So if you're saying you can move it left and right, that means it's probably not hitting the end stop. Tell me, can you home the Y? Or is it just the X that's providing issues? Because the X, depending on the load, can be more problematic. You may be hearing clicking in the background. It's because my cable tray is dipped down a little bit, so I keep sneaking back and forth to adjust it. I'll be right back.
All right, so Paul Cumber is asking, what makes a 3D printer home to the left? Usually it's always in firmware. The firmware determines how the machine is going to work. So at the end of the day, I would check your firmware and make sure that it is going to where it should be going. It should be to the bottom left corner. If you're looking at the machine, the bottom would be what is in front of you. If it is going there, then you should be all right. Yeah, it's all done in firmware settings, like Ben says. I think that's...
Yeah, so at the end of the day, break down a printer into its basic components. It can make a lot more sense. You've got a motor, and it goes one direction or it goes the other. So there's an invert stepper direction in configuration.h, and that defines which way it goes. And at the end of the day, it actually doesn't really matter which way it goes as long as the way it goes has an end stop. You can now, If you put the M stop on the other side and it's going backwards, your print might be mirrored on the X and Y. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean to say you can't program it to say, hey, I want you to home to X max instead of X min. There's a way to do it. Um, yeah, that's going to be your basic. Honestly, that's one of the few things you have to configure from vanilla Marlin per each printer is the step direction. And don't forget the extruder one, because that's the one that always gets you. Everything looks good, and then you go to
Yeah.
print, and it's pulling a filament out.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got another question here from Penguin Life. Let's put that one up on the screen. The first layer, how can I go about cleaning my XY axis on my original Prusa i3 Mark II? I'm printing headbands for my local hospital and my printer sits next to me during school classes, which is annoying. There is a way to put, I think it's not cleaning so much as it is turning it into its silent mode. If you put it into silent mode, it should be just fine. And you can do that right through the front dial.
Yeah, it shouldn't. You shouldn't have any noise on those axes. In fact, at most, you should only get a couple of vibration sounds if you're really ripping at high speed. And I'm running a Cr-10 S5 downstairs, and the fans are louder than the entire machine. So if it is noisy, just make sure when you have your steppers disabled, and just hand move a little bit slowly and see if you have any resistance on there. If you start having resistance or little blips, you may want to adjust your eccentric nuts on that carriage, because if you're hearing noise is always a result of two materials coming together, whether it's bearings rubbing
Yeah.
or a non-flat surface, shall we say. So take the opportunity when you have some downtime, inspect your wheels, make sure your eccentric nuts are tight but not too tight, and we've done, I think, a couple videos on that.
Yeah, I
And
think
make
we
sure you
have.
got no wobble in your bed.
Yeah.
So,
All
and
right, next
past that should
question.
be pretty much silent.
This is a quick question from Mike Brown. He says, have you used or have any thoughts on the power off after printing module from Big Tree? I haven't used it yet. It is a separate module. I usually take care of that in firmware. And in the firmware, what it's going to do is it's going to write a little code to the card that is in the printer at the time. So that way, when the power comes back on, it's going to go ahead and resume from where it started, so long as you didn't move anything. So that's pretty much that question. Let's get back to some of the questions that came in through email. We have one here from Hector. It says, I recently upgraded my Ender 3 with the Creality Silent Board 1.1.5. It's running on Marlin 1.1.8. Neither with the stock motherboard nor with the new motherboard have I ever flashed upgraded to firmware. I use both Cura 4.4.1 and Prusa Slicer 2.2 with its new build in Ender 3 profiles. For multicolor prints, where you mark the layer where there is a filament change, I prefer Prusa Slicer 3, but as I was printing one multicolor print from Prusa Slicer, the printer did not stop. First I thought that I sliced it incorrectly, but after the second test, I noticed that the manual filament change option on the printer was also missing. Then for the third test, I used Cura, but with both slicers, it was missing. So my question is the following: is the lack of an option to change filament related with the actual firmware, and can I upgrade it as it was before the motherboard change? That's actually a really good question. I'm going to
I
let you
think he's
tackle that.
missing the M. Yeah, I think he's missing the M600
That could
feature
be.
of Marlin,
Yep.
which it's not turned on by default. Now I will see if I can get. Something's broken with Visual Studio Code on this computer, so I apologize. I can't show it to you, but there's a couple of features that you have to turn on. One is nozzle park, and one is advanced pause. And if you look for those in your firmware, turn those on, and what it does is it enables the command M600. Now, this is commonly used for filament change, so if you have a filament runout sensor, you're going to enable this all as a part of that feature. But if you don't have a filament runout sensor, it still just adds it as a G-code command. So when you're doing a change at layer height in Cura or in Prusa Slicer or any of those, usually it will issue an M600 command in there. And if your printer does not have that command, it's just simply going to keep on printing. So if that's the exact issue you're encountering, you have to enable that feature in your firmware.
Here's another one for you from Depark88. Can you recommend a Core XY printer and Bowden or direct drive for it? You're more into the Core XY than I am.
I mean, I like my Ender 5,
There you
even
go.
though it's not really a Core XY, right? There are plenty of good ones out there, but the Ender 5, I've heard mixed bags on the Ender 5 Plus, so it depends on your build volume size. As I said, I like my Ender 5 for the lack of vibrations, and it's pretty quiet, and it fits under most standard grow tents if you want to build an enclosure. It is Bowden set up. I was thinking about direct driving it, but it works fine with Bowden. So Ender 5, probably my way to go on a Core XY, at least in the lower budget range. We can get into Flash Forges and all those other brands, but yeah, for the price, it can't beat it. What's your opinion, Richard?
I think you're absolutely right about that. I've got nothing actually to add to that. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's the way to go for sure.
You got to think, I mean, the Ender 5 is just an Ender 3 in a Core XY body. Yep. It runs on 24 volts. It uses the exact same hot end, extruder, everything. So the benefit of going that route is you have the flexibility to interchange all parts that are much more readily available because it's available for the Ender 3.
All right, so here we go.
Yeah, I know. Ben's harping on me saying Ender 5 is not Core XY. I to this day... Yeah.
Okay, let's go to this question here. Guy Lanzone. He says, I just installed the 1.1.5 board on my Ender 3 Pro and flashed the firmware to 1.1.9 and reboot, got the blue screen. Printer works when connected to Cura via USB. Did I kill my board? I don't think you killed your board. I think what you've done is that you haven't installed the firmware correctly. And I think Brian's going to agree with me on this because you should be able to print from your SD card, and you should not.
I'm sorry, it's an Ender 3, correct?
Yes, Ender 3 Pro.
Okay, here's what you need to do. You need to go into your firmware settings under configuration.h and find the line #define Cr-10 _display. I believe that's the exact verbiage. It's the display type for that board. For the Meltzy boards, especially if you're plugged into EXP3, is Cr-10 display, not the RepRap full discount smart controller blah 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 that's used on the Cr-10S. So look up that line, make sure that one is uncommented, so there's no diagonal lines in front of it, and then your screen should pop up. It sounds like you got the firmware flash correct, it just didn't have that configuration for the screen in there.
There you go. Penguin Life, the first layer, okay, I'll try that, thanks. I just measured with the Decibel app a little while ago, and it averaged 85 dB. The loudest screech measured at 100. Okay. Yeah, you don't have silent turned on. You don't have silent printing turned on.
Also, have you replaced the wheels with polycarbonates? Because I do know that when you over-torque polycarbonates, after a while they start screaming.
Yes.
Just bouncing back to the previous one, Ben got it right there. #define Cr-10 _ stock display. So that's the line you want to enable for displays on Ender 3s and any boards that use EXP3.
Yep. All right, last question. But before we move into the question, we should tell you where you can find us. And you can find...
Right here.
Right here, yes. You can find us on Facebook under Groups, The First Layer. If you want to become a member over there, you certainly can. Instagram, you can follow us on The First Layer. We are trying to get more stuff up on Instagram. I haven't given Brian the access to it yet, so it's only me.
Oh, come on. I'm not that young anymore. I don't know this Instagram stuff anymore.
Thanks. I'm 55 next week. Or you can follow me on Cleveland I Am on Twitter and, of course, right here on YouTube. Now, if you want to support the show, there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. And first and foremost, you can go to this one.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh, hey, it's on my side.
It's
Nice.
on your side. Buy me a coffee. You can go there and show your support for us, and the description, or it's down in our description below as well. You certainly don't have to support the show, but we always like it when you do. Or you can go and get some of our fantastic merch, and this stuff is kind of cool. I'm not wearing one tonight. I'm actually wearing a YouTube shirt, but
Hey, you know what's funny?
What's that?
You finally added those kid sizes, and Lachlan didn't show up tonight.
I know. I noticed that. So there you go. You can get hoodies, you can get T-shirts, you can get all kinds of goodies over there. Coffee cups. Mine is sitting on my desk at the shop. I haven't had my nice coffee cup here all week, and I'm getting sad that I don't have it.
I have a Yeti mug in my car, and I last removed it when I came home from my site trip about 2.5 weeks ago. I'm kind of afraid to go remove it.
There you go. Or you can always do this, and you can go to our Patreon, The First Layer, and we've got some new Patreons, and I want to thank all of our Patreons. Thank you very much. High five, fist bump, elbow bump, all kinds of bumps, butt bumps.
Just
if you want to do
Louinus.
that. Thank you very much for your support. It's people like you that support the show that help to keep us bringing you content each and every week, and help us to do these live streams for you as well.
Hey, Richard, your animation's broken.
It is. I have to turn it off. There we go. There you go.
There we go.
I got rid of your square.
Oh,
Sorry. But
Where are my
yes,
cool
those are ways that you can support the show, or you can use the super chat down below. When you use the super chat, you get one of these fine things.
Super chat.
da, 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 da.
And of course, you get our undying gratitude and appreciation for that as well. Hey guys, late to the show, Tim McCoy. Hector
Better late
says
than
thank you
never.
better late than never. Actually, I'm going to be with Tim next Saturday. We're going to be doing some recording together at his shop here in Calgary. Last question.
Hey, Jim.
Go ahead.
Well, I got Jim in the chat here. I want to know, Jim, did the fix I send you work? If it did, we'll talk about it here briefly.
Okay, now let's go on to the last question in tonight's list of questions. And this is from Super Dork, aka Dana. Says, I'm a dude, by the way. So maybe it's Dana Carvey or Dana Carvey. I'm not sure. It's Dana anyway. He says, I've been watching a while, but never wanted to write in. Well, we're sorry. But I've got a problem that I can't find a solution to online. I got an Ender 3 and a Raspberry Pi 2B running Octoprint. When I go to print, it gets about 5 layers in, and then an hour goes on the screen something about a tool 10 failure, and then all heating stops, and does the extruder motor movement, but the X, Y, and Z movement keeps going. I've Googled it and asked Reddit, but I couldn't find an answer. How do I get my printer working again? Get rid of that Raspberry Pi for starters, upgrade to a 3B or a 3B Plus, or even a 4, and that should solve your problem. The problem with the 2B is that it's not sending enough data, and then when it tries to send a block of data, the Ender 3 doesn't have the capacity to hold the inconsistent amounts of data that it's sending down the line. So I would say to you that because I've been doing a lot with Octoprint over the last few months, I would say to you to upgrade that to a 3B or a 3B Plus or even a 4, and that should solve your problems. The other thing I would do is, of course, get rid of that Ender 3 board that is in there, because there's not a lot of space on that board, especially if you've got anything added like a BL Touch. It really, the more you pack onto the board, the less it's going to be able to cache the commands that are coming in from the Raspberry Pi.
Now, I'm just curious with that, too, is with that exact same G-code file, are you having the same issues if you print from SD?
That
Because
would be a good question.
that's the big... I'm not going to lie to you guys. These new 32-bit boards have a lot of weird issues with serial transmission, and it has to do Basically, with how the entire hierarchy of these little fancy 32-bit boards work. And I won't get into the technicalities here tonight, but what you need to know is that it's basically emulating it's emulating a chip, and then within that, it's emulating the serial buffer. So things can go wrong on the serial buffer. Now, whether it's the Raspberry Pi or the board, you may spend weeks trying to diagnose this. So my first step always is take that G code file straight onto the SD card and print straight from the printer. If it doesn't print or it has issues, it's either a slicer issue or it's an issue with the feature in the firmware that's misreading it. If it does work, then you got to go start looking into serial issues, and there's serial buffer commands you can modify. There's firmware issues you can deal with. It's all about eliminating diagnosing. So you said you had the 8-bit board, I think. What was it, 1.1.5?
Yeah, I think that's the one he's got.
Okay.
Well, he's on an Ender
the,
3. He didn't say he was on an Ender 3 Pro. So.
Okay. I'm assuming an Ender 3 is still on the stock board. You shouldn't have serial issues, but 98% of the issues I had with Octoprint was a result of a very poor quality USB cable. So make sure you buy a good quality USB. I want to say it's Mini A. I'm a little bit rusty on my USB types, but buy a better quality shielded cable, and that will definitely increase your quality and hopefully not give you as many serial buffer issues as it sounds like.
Okay, I want to head back here to Snapshot FPV was saying he's had a couple of questions here. Scroll back up 3 parts, please.
Yeah, sorry, we're
long
trying.
question. We're trying to get them all. So trying to get my mostly stock E3 to pause at a particular layer, say layer 3, so I can change filament using Cura 4.4.0 under extrusion, modify G code, then change at Z. I think that's, I don't think that's the whole question, but I think that's the gist of it. I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to pause at a certain layer so that you can change out the filament. Yes, you can do that at pause at Z, but just be aware that it is going to cause issues for you over the long haul if you're trying to change filaments at certain layers. So that's
it's not a fun thing to calculate because Cura's plugin is based off a height, and then based off that, it back calculates the layers. But I would have liked it if I could have, hand calculated that height because, there's a lot of times where I'll design something and say, okay, this is 4 millimeters tall, and then I want you to pause and do your next part. And it hasn't been great, honestly. I've been actually having more success slicing my file, then going to the G code, and based off the preview, I say, okay, I want it to pause at this layer. I find that within the G code, and I add an M600 before it, and then I do my filament swap, and then it keeps going. That way, the slicer hasn't told it to change. Rather, I've modified it after the fact.
There you go. There we go. Now we're back. I'm getting used to an app from vMix that's allowing me to put your chats up on the screen for you guys tonight. So we've covered all of our questions that came in through email. So we're still working through a couple of things. So,
yeah, that's the problem with live streams. I've been talking with Richard before the show, and for those of you who've chatted with me on Discord, my audio quality and video quality is actually far better outside this vMix platform. However, because I don't own a version of vMix there, I can't do the traditional vMix call. So I have to basically do it all by hand, web, and it results in a quality loss. So this is something for, since we all have various backgrounds, I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat if you know of a better video call platform that we can stream to YouTube on that supports 1080p. That's the biggest thing, is it needs to support 1080p and better quality audio.
Yes. So we have one here from Sean Gould. I'm just going to send that to the screen right now. Which should limit the throughput to what the printer can handle?
Sorry, we got a wet dog here.
My understanding is that the Octoprint waits for an OK to each line before sending the next one. Yes, it does. But
Boy.
here's the bad part about that. It will send it, but the buffer on the board may not take it all. Yes, it's saying, okay, the lane is clear to proceed, but it's like trying to push a semi through what a VW bug would fit in.
Yeah, that's basically it. So bear in mind, at the end of the day, the exact the serial buffer that we're using to transmit between Octoprint and your printer is akin to the old BBS systems that we had, in the late 80s, early 90s in the schools, where you had to dial into a server and then you watch it draw the screen with all the data. And that's about the transfer rate on average that the two are communicating at. You can go faster, however, data integrity gets compromised. So now you're talking about handshaking protocols back and forth. You're talking about block buffer sizes on the printer. And I'll give you guys the TLDR. If you use the buffer size, the printer can accept commands at a go. However, anything you issue, for instance, a pause or a filament change, if you're issuing it outside of that G-code reading, it has to burn through that buffer before it gets that command. So if you have it, I've just for fun the other week, I set it to, I think, 256 or 512 commands. And then I went and hit a pause on my screen and it just kept going. It said waiting, waiting, waiting. And then about a minute later, it's like, okay, we're good.
There you go. Paul Cumber's asking, how often do you oil the rods? I usually oil my rods about every 1,500 hours. I'll give my computer a complete, or my printer a complete cleaning. And then I'll, adjust anything that needs to be adjusted, belts, tensions, that kind of thing. I'll also make sure that all of my other screws are still tight, because over time, with the vibration of the printer, things can start to come loose. And then I'll just put a little bit of grease on my rods, and I'm off to the races.
Yeah, it's remember, as I've said this almost 3 weeks in a row, guys, it's all about preventative maintenance and not reactive. So don't wait for the squeak.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the vibrations. If you start to notice some changing in print quality, that's an immediate action because it's only going to get worse. So, just be smart about it. If you've got the materials, do it more often. It's like an oil change, right? How far can you actually get with an oil change? 15,000 clicks. How often should you do it? Every 8?
Yeah.
So, your mileage may vary. You change it at 8, you know it's going to work. You change it at 15, you're gambling. Let's be honest.
If you don't change it, you're gambling even more.
Yeah, you might get away with it. Let's be honest, you might. I've seen some horror stories where they managed to get like 200,000 K.
Well,
should you? No.
I got to tell you, my old Ford truck, which I still miss to this day, I changed the oil when I bought it and never changed the oil after that. And I drove that thing for 5 years straight.
Could have drove it for 10.
See,
this is why we're bad examples.
Yeah, it was a junkyard dog.
I mean, depending on the oil you use, to be honest, it probably will last a couple of years sometimes. But as soon as you have any dust in the environment, it builds up in there, right? There's a reason cars have covers on all their hydraulics and all that, is because dust is what gets in there. So
yeah, exactly.
If you use something like white lithium grease, it's a thick grease. Dust is going to bind to it. If you use liquid, like the 3-in-1 oils and things like that, it's probably less likely that dust will stick. But that's what's going to get you, is dust on there and any kind of vibrations that may be to be polished off. And I'm trying to avoid this channel because I'm gonna make some dirty jokes otherwise.
Just remember, just remember, don't oil your rod in public.
Yes. Oh. I shouldn't have given you that button. I shouldn't have.
We even have other ones. This is when Brian's explanations are going too long.
Wait, you didn't use that already?
No, I didn't. Because your explanations didn't put anybody to sleep tonight.
Not yet.
Tim McCoy says, is sewing machine oil okay for Z-rod screws as well as smooth Prusa carriage rods? Absolutely it is.
Yeah, it's
But before you use it, you've got to clean off any material and any previous grease that was on there. If you don't, you could be in for some friction between the two different solvents or oils.
if you don't clean it at the end of the day, all you're doing is lubricating dust. Let's be honest. So
Yeah, there you go.
sewing machine oil, I've seen it used a lot more on linear rails, and I've used it myself.
Yeah,
I've learned in like the past 6 months that you're not supposed to use white lithium grease on linear rails. It actually causes more issues.
it does.
It all depends on the area you have to work with. Now with a Z rod, because Creality has such a loose Z rod, for instance, because the what are those things called? The T nuts.
T-nuts, yeah.
They're
The brass
they
nuts,
are
yeah.
yeah, you're supposed to keep those loose so that they can wiggle around. So they're moving all over the place all the time. There's a lot of room in there, so if you put white lithium grease in there, it's unlikely to bind up. But if you're dealing with more better engineered rails, shall we say, and rods and so forth, if you can work with the machining oil, work with it. If you can't, go for something thicker.
Killer Penguins, hope you guys are all having a great day. Well, we are having a great day.
Yeah, actually.
I get to leave my house on Monday and go back to work.
Oh boy.
I'm so happy about that.
I feel better today. I feel more awake. I don't know what it is. Well, actually, I can be honest with you guys. We've had an outbreak of H1N1 in Calgary. There's been various flus going around in addition to COVID. So we've had a couple of scares around here, shall we say, where people had some symptoms, and so we self-quarantined for the sake of that. And the worst part is the more you read into it, the more you start having, or you feel that you're having symptoms. So I had to stop reading it because I've been feeling drowsy for days. I've been just, it's exhausting, truth be told.
Yeah.
So this is like the first Saturday. I've been perked up, getting my machines going, and fighting with all this stuff. So, hurrah.
I get to leave the house. I get to leave the house.
Yeah, you know what? That feeling is great until you go into the Costco. And then you're like, oh yeah, reality's set back in.
Yeah,
Can
there
I
you
go
go.
home yet?
Yeah. Can I go
That's
home
what happened today. I went to go pick up a few things, walked out with like a $500 load of groceries because it's like, oh, I might need that in 2 weeks. And oh, I might need that in 2 weeks. And the reason I went to Costco is because they have had the best implementation of social distancing I've dealt with so far.
Oh.
So I will happily support them for that.
There you go.
But yeah, you know what? About like 20 minutes into shopping there, which I love going to Costco. I was getting stressed out. I'm like, you're focusing so much on avoiding people. It's like, oh, I want to go over there, but there are 3 people over there. I guess I'll do another loop of the store. And I mean, it was great, but I got supplies and all, but it's still a very weird thing. And well, I don't know. You guys can tell me. Have you guys been experiencing social anxiety while out in public? Because for me, it's got, I'm like it now. I want to go outside. I want to go outside. I want to go outside. Get outside for 3 minutes. Go back in.
So we're almost at the end of the show. Brian, what have you been working on this week other than rebuilding your printer?
Yeah, again. The Cr-10S Gen 4. Well, I've been diagnosing a lot of issues I've had with that machine, and I'm pretty much getting a lot of nowhere fast, but
Gotcha.
I've upgraded my Cr-10S5 to 24 volts. I have the bed sitting ready to go right here. Just a little baby 300. I've got that ready to go on the machine, but for the time being, because I have to drill some holes in the build plate, I've just been printing without any heated bed, just to try some different adhesion methods, and boy, has that been interesting. Apart from, well, you know what? Hairspray works amazing when it's heated, not when it's not.
There you go.
So, but glue stick does work cold. That's kind of been my learnings.
Yeah, I found that out too.
Yeah, apart from all the other machines are basically running, which has me worried because I think I'm down to 15 kilos of filaments. So I'm trying to actually selectively choose what I'm printing now.
Yeah, I'm actually printing, of course, these things. Behind me, over here, you can see that I've got, I'm printing some parts for a Han Solo blaster yet again. And this machine right here, the one with the big orange cover on it, that is the Creality LD002R, which we've got a review coming out on very soon. We are going to postpone the Flash Forge one. It was going to come out this Wednesday coming. But the reason that we have to postpone it is because they only sent me one roll of filament when they were supposed to send me two, because it has dual extruders and dual nozzles on it. So they really want me to highlight the capability of it being able to do dual color prints. So we'll wait for that to show up, and that just gives me a little bit more time to get my B-roll all in order.
We want to.
Go ahead.
We want to get good content out. You know, that's the challenge, right? Is we've had a couple duds in the past. Sorry, I'm a little choppy here. I don't know if that's me.
Yeah, it's you.
Okay, I was just hugging the wrong connection. So we want to get good quality content out. We've had a couple episodes we've rushed in the past, and there's almost no point, honestly, in releasing a really crummy episode.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to put out content for
we just want to take a bit of time.
Content. We do want to thank these guys, though, because without them, we wouldn't have this, and it's going to go right over Brian's forehead. Spool3D.ca. You can get all of the stuff that you need from Spool3D.ca. If you're looking for filaments or parts or printers, you can check them out today. Also, if you're in the eastern part of the country, check out filaments.ca. We don't have a bug for them yet, but we will have one soon. They're not sponsoring us in any way, neither is Spool3D, but you know, it's just something I feel the need to do. Even though my studio is now back at home. Oh, you'd like me to turn that off? Okay, sorry. even though my studio is back at home, and it's going to remain at home until this whole COVID-19 thing is all over. I would, you know, it's going to stay here for now. So we're setting up overhead rigs still, and we're going to do a lot of stuff. Spool3D is the best in Calgary, RT says. Spool3D is very, very low on PET-G, Raymond Emsley says.
Yes.
Yes, they're very low on a lot of things. I wanted to point out that Killer Penguin says, I'm fairly new to everything and the community and been learning a lot. Got an Ender 5 Plus as my first printer. Good for you, man.
That's a heck of a good printer for your first printer. And I know I might receive some flack from that, but there's a gentleman by the name of Luke Hatfield who worked with Creality to get that product on the market, and so there was a lot of good engineering that was put into it. I'd love to play with one. It just doesn't fit a need right now at the price point that it is, that I haven't already solved with one of my other printers. I'm just going to jump on one question here, quick one. It was from Maker13 Matheson that said, Brian, would you recommend the linear rail upgrade on the Cr-10 after using it for a while? For me, 100% yes. I love the one that I did, which I'll have to dig up the Thingiverse link for, relies on MGN 15 rails. So it's very sturdy, it's very quiet. It's the one running right behind me right now, printing PET-G. And so once I got the rails in, I put in solid bed mounts and the BL Touch, and I haven't had a problem since. So if that's the route you want to go, definitely anything bigger or Cr-10 or bigger should really be on linear rails.
I have to upgrade mine at some point. Maybe we'll do that on a show coming up.
Yeah.
All right, you hot end maniacs and warriors. We love your faces, of course, each and every week. We love you guys coming in here and taking your time on a Saturday night when you could be out drinking or watching the hockey game. Oh yeah, there's no hockey.
You couldn't.
Yeah,
there's no hockey. There's no
hockey.
Thank you for making it this far down your list of things to do on a Saturday. We appreciate it.
We do. Absolutely. We want to tell you that we will be back Wednesday with a brand new episode, and we will see you again here next Saturday night at 7 o'clock, where Brian and I, if Brian's available, I don't know, are you available on Saturday or no?
Well, we might all be shooting in the same shop next Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Maybe here.
Yeah.
Maybe here.
But maybe we can throw him the card so we can show him where to email those questions.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. Yeah. I should probably turn you back on. There you go. So you guys can send your questions to questions@thefirstlayer.com. each and every week. We do check those. Right now, you can start submitting questions for next week's show, and we will get to those questions as we do. Remember that the questions that come in through the email are our priority first. If you really need to have a question asked and you want to get our attention, the best way to do it is through Super Chat at the bottom of the chat screen there. Again, everything goes into the same pot to help us bring you guys brand new content each and every week. I'm going to switch back to both Brian and myself here again. Brian?
And I'm sorry, guys, I could not. Oh, wait, you know what? I think I just found that video that I spoke about right at the beginning, talking about the different voltage curves and everything. You know, this is the problem with trying to find this. So I'll post that in the chat if you guys really want. It's quite dry, to be honest with you, but if you want to watch the video, it talks all about the trinamics and how the curves vary. The simple answer is silent step is fine for 98% of the applications. There you go, guys. Whole round circle.
So, good night. I'm going to wait and say goodbye.
Hey, what's the closing statement?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to say that.
I forgot to say it. This
is what's happened.
This is what happened.
We forgot what day it is.
Yeah. Remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print until we see you next week. Take care, guys.
Have a good one, guys.